Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Human Chess series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and for the final video of the year, we are taking a look at the last game from the Dutch Women's Championship. And we're taking a look at the game between Anna-Maja Kazarian-Robin Duson. It was a very interesting game. Robin had won the first game of the mini-match, so Anna-Maja needed to win as white to equalize. And, well, let's have a look how that turned out. So e4, c5, knight f3, e6. Robin not just playing solidly for a draw, but playing very aggressively, which I think is a good approach in these games. d4 takes, knight c6, knight c3, and queen c7. This is the Paulson variation. So many choices here. Bishop e3 is probably the main line. But g3 was played by Anna-Maja, and this is very solid line. Michael Adams played it quite a lot. Pretty good really. So a6 played, stops anything coming into b5 and attacking the queen on c7, very typical move in this line. Bishop g2 and now h5. Yeah, I mean, I have played this a little bit as white actually, and to be honest, I never felt comfortable. Certainly when black played moves like h5, always found it a little bit hard to even if I'd analysed it well with my engines, and my engines felt that h5 h4 wasn't amazingly dangerous. It was a decent strategy, but not terribly dangerous. During the game, especially in rapid games, I always ended up feeling a little bit nervous, about what was going to happen to my king. Now, there's a few ideas here. h3 is what Anna-Maja played, and that's very sensible, quite typical as well. The idea is that after h4, you can go g4, and there's no h3 from black. That's quite important. The engines were quite keen on castles as well. And after h4, rook e1, this is being played by Wesley So against Alain Pichot in a chess.com online game. And that game had continued takes knight e5, f4, knight c6. Makes me really nervous, I have to say. But, well, if Wesley did it, presumably it must be okay. It just went bishop e3, actually, and takes, knight a4 and c4, quite typical. Only quite unusual that blacks played this exchange quite so early. But Wesley seemed to have a pretty good position in general, though the game ended in a draw. The engines actually were looking more at d6 in this position, so being a little bit less adventurous. And then knight takes, c6 takes, and e5. Actually, this is a trick that Michael Adams played against me many years ago. The idea is that if de, we've got stuff like rook takes e5, when queen takes allows bishop takes c6 check. So because black hasn't moved the knight to f6, black can just meet e5 with d5, and then we try and hang on the dark squares there. Very sharp position, and the fact that you've played this move h5 to h4 sort of randomizes matters a little bit. On the one hand, there's going to be some pressure on the king side from black. On the other hand, where is black going to put the king? The queen side doesn't look that great with these pawns on here. But yeah, if you move to the king side, then well, there's going to be squares for the white queen to exploit. This game was quite stunning, actually. It was Stockfish against Dragon. c3, bishop e7, rook c1, h3. Just, we've seen this so often, just launching that pawn on h3, restricting the white king, hoping that it's going to be, a long-term strength. So knight h6, and now b4, opening up the queen side there. Before black's castled, so obviously c takes b4 is quite awkward. So c4, bishop b6, queen c6, bishop c5. Black still can't castle here. Obviously, we're attacking the bishop on e7. If you take on c5, the knight gets to a great square. So a5 played, and then the tactics really start here. Rook d6, queen d7, bishop d6. I mean, I just thought this was completely winning for white. I have to say, when I first saw it, knight c5 is threatened, hitting those two. Bishop d6, e d6, rook c8, rook takes b7, bishop d5, queen b5. Black just hanging on by a miracle, really, here, just check, knight there, and takes. Bishop c4, queen c5, and the engines thought that that black had actually managed to survive. You're just going to play something like g6, king g7, and you're going to be absolutely fine. But pretty fraught for black, you know, and I wouldn't. I'm not sure. Yeah, I just don't really. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're difficult positions, put it that way, and I think it's very easy for black to lose track about what exactly he's doing, you know, and yeah, what the plan actually is. Very unusual positions. So yeah, I mean, it could be that the castles is well worth looking at, you know, but obviously, you know, you've just got to be a little bit prepared that that there's going to be some unpleasantness around your king side, and you know, you've got to be able to deal with that. So h3 played, and now knight e7, quite interesting. Typical idea in the Paulson, that you're just going to take and then move the other knight round to c6. Often moves like knight b3, you know, are interesting, or knight de2. You just basically aim to, you know, it's the concept of the superfluous knights. You've got two knights that want to go to the c6 square, so you leave both of them on the board. You don't let black exchange one off. Yeah, I mean, the engines were either playing castles or playing this move bishop f4. The idea actually is quite nice. After e5 you take on c6 now, and obviously if you go knight c6, I've got knight d5 now, so you have to take back with the d pawn, which means that this knight's blocking in the bishop on f8. But yeah, bishop e3, bishop e6, queen e2, h4, castles takes, h4 from white, didn't make much difference, and then knight g8 and knight f6, and black just organised himself. I mean, it's slightly better for white again, but black's actually, you know, decent in this position. You'll go rook d8, swap off a pair of rooks. You know, you'll be all right in this position. And Dragon held this quite easily against Stockfish. So bishop f4 is one idea, but it looks quite sensible. But castles, takes, knight c6, and now a novelty from Anna-Maja. I think we've seen queen d3, we've seen queen d1. And I think my engines also played the move queen e3, which is quite nice, stopping the bishop from going to c5. And then you get knight e5, queen e2. And this is actually a game Shuchkin against Lasnica, Pardubice 2015, in which black, the much higher rated player, won after bishop c5. Yeah, the engine's looking at moves like b5, for example, f4, bishop c5, king h1, knight c6. Yeah, I mean, there's always, yeah, I mean, always feels a little bit odd for black. I mean, you know, you get this sort of thing. This is quite a typical idea. I'll just show you how the game went. Bishop e3, ed5, bishop c5, queen c5 takes, king f8. Now, a lot of these things always look a little bit dodgy for black somehow, but the engines think they're quite equal. The bishop's coming to e6, and then at some stage the king will get developed, and white won't have anything more. Yeah, white's got a few tempi here, so you might hope that he could get something done, but yeah, the engines seem to think that this was pretty equal. But yeah, I mean, again, you know, it's you know, my feeling always with these positions, you know, with black, I was always a little bit worried that I might lose track of what I'm doing and then just end up with not being able to castle either king side or queen side and not actually know what my plan is. With white, I was always a little nervous about the power of the counterplay, really. So I think probably I just didn't know the positions well enough, and they just weren't intuitive enough to me to you know, to really be able to play them well without a lot of work. Yeah, you get positions like that. But queen d2 is an interesting idea from Anna-Maja, although she didn't quite follow it up as I thought she might, because bishop c5 was played with a cunning little trick there. Queen takes g3, and I was sort of thinking that Anna-Maja's idea was to play knight e2, with the idea of so you're covering g3, of course, in this way, with the idea of going something like b3 and bishop b2, which looks quite interesting. I mean, you know, the bishop's coming to here, the queen can come out to g5. So yeah, I mean, b5, knight f4, here knight d3, and then rook c1 followed by c4 to c5 was Stockfish's idea. I mean, the engines didn't think that it was amazing or anything like that, but actually it does look quite interesting and quite logical to me. You know, I quite like this queen d2 followed by knight e2 idea. But Anna-Maja just played king h1, and then yeah, yeah, I'm slightly. I was looking at all the engines line, not quite really understanding what all the differences were, to be honest. I mean, what Stockfish wants to do is just to go d6, and he wants to go actually bishop d7 and castle queenside. That's it's thinking more about castling queenside with the pawn on h5 there. So, for example, we get a3, bishop d7. Another plan actually played by Dragon was just to go b5, bishop b6, and then castles, just played like this as a pawn sacrifice, but again, very sharp position. I mean, a lot of weaknesses now with this queenside, but there's an extra pawn, and h5 is hanging as well. I mean, what often happened is that the engines just seem to give away this pawn and just go for activity on the queenside, but these incredibly complicated positions. Stockfish was playing bishop d7, f4, f6, queen e2, and then castle queenside like this, which I don't know. I mean, kind of nerve-wracking that b4 to b5 is going to be quick, but there's stuff like knight d4 coming in. So queen d3, knight e7, b4, bishop b6, a4 and d5 striking in the center, takes, f5, queen c4. This was one of the lines. Yeah, kind of little bit tricky. I mean, I got the feeling was that Black had to be quite specific and careful in these lines. Sort of sometimes you're going to castle queenside, sometimes you'll think of castling kingside, and sometimes you're just going to delay and then just see how the wind lies before playing. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't underestimate these positions with Black. They're quite nice. I love the idea of them, but yeah, I don't find them intuitive at all. What Robin played was h4, g4, and then castles here. So yeah, kind of sort of leaving this rook's pawn hanging. But yeah, you're going to have to create some counterplay. I mean, in a way, I do prefer what the engines did just in general, which was to try and get some development first, and then afterwards only at the end castle queenside, because just castling kingside this early does give White a bit more warning about what Black's doing, and it gives White maybe a bit more time to tee up with some more directly aggressive moves against the kingside. Yeah, queen g5 was one idea. Oops, not queen f4, sorry. Queen g5 here. The idea of going bishop e7, queen h5, you just get behind this rook's pawn, and then you're going to try and play f4 and this sort of stuff. Looked pretty dangerous to me, to be honest, although again, Stockfish was working this way out of swapping off the queens here, which is obviously something probably pretty important for Black to do. I mean, yeah, it's probably not too dangerous for Black. It's fine. It's just that when you start seeing lines like this where you say, ooh, the engines are really very keen with a move like queen a5 on swapping off queens, and you sort of realise that even if the position is objectively equal, there might be quite a bit of danger for Black to deal with, and that finding the right manoeuvre at the right moment is getting more and more crucial. And I think that's probably more the result of a move like castles. It's not a bad move by any means, perfectly good move, but yeah, just the risk that you're taking, and the value and of being precise is a lot harder, is a lot higher, and yeah, that can be difficult, So f4, b5, and now queen e1, just hitting h4. Nice direct plan from Anna-Maja. I mean, f5 also possible. Bishop b7, f6, but then the queens were coming to the queen was coming to e5. That was the idea, and seemed to sort of be okay for Black. There was one incredible game where White played queen d1. I think looking for stuff like g5 and bishop f4. You're just freeing the line of the dark squared bishop. And then, knight d4 was played in one game. G5 was played by Stockfish in another one. And actually, Stockfish just ended up sacrificing both these pawns and then just playing for counterplay on the queen side. And without the queens off, with the queens off rather, I mean, this king is actually not in too great danger. So, all of White's initial players gone, and quite a lot is happening on the queen side here too. So, I could imagine that Black's got some counterplay. I wouldn't really have been sure that that it's enough for two pawns, but actually what Stockfish showed was that there's even counterplay on the king side here, because you've got moves like knight e5 takes g4, so it's actually quite there's a lot of counterplay for black here. Quite impressive in actual fact. Takes, bishop c7, king g5. Totally crazy this. Bishop d8, and then we're going to end up picking up the f6 pawn as well. Yeah, very interesting line here, but obviously, danger there, and some good, precise and non-standard play required to deal with it. After queen e1, knight d4 was played by Robin, and I think probably here Robin just didn't quite get the right idea. It seems like it was important to sort of play b4 first of all, and make sure that one attacking white piece is moved over to the queen side, and then after f5, e5, queen h4, knight e5, bishop f4, bishop a6. Then this was what the engine was suggesting. Well, we got some counterplay here. Also, the queen side is weakened as well. Yeah, again, I'm slightly nervy about moves like this that could happen. Obviously the engine seems to feel that that it can deal with those, but it is quite slightly worrying, all this. But the engine really felt, at any rate, that making sure that this knight was offside would definitely help black with the defense. And basically, the engine was also thinking that this pawn's gone, but we need to organize some queenside against the counterplay. Now Robin's move against the queenside, rather. Robin's move was good from that point of view. I mean, it's the right sort of idea. The knight's attacking the c2 pawn. Only it's, if you're looking at what black's achieving with with b4 and bishop a7, you're really exposing this c2 square. This knight is offside. This knight can still come after f5 to e5 to give some defense to the king side. It's you somehow feel that a lot more black pieces are involved in the counter-attack and defense. When black plays the move knight d4, take c2, that's just one lone piece doing some sort of counterplay, and it turns out to be not enough, basically. So queen h4 was played, and now knight c2, and this is where it starts getting really serious. b4 was, according to the engine, was the last chance. Similar idea. We're threatening queen takes c2 here. Oh, that went a bit out of the way. Queen takes c2, c3, knight e2. So actually you're stopping f5, which is quite nice because of knight g3 check. So queen e1 played, takes, and now actually an amazing move from the engines. b3 here. So you're doing everything basically not to open up any lines for the black pieces, and then you're playing bishop b7, and after b4, f5. Quite amazing play this, but actually what you're trying to claim here is that with these two sort of Basman lurking bishops, he always put his bishops like this, or you saw it quite often. This offside knight on a4, for example, after ef, I just take, and queen c6 check. The pressure that we've got, then, you've got compensation for 2 pawns. I mean, I didn't really think that it would be enough for 2 pawns, but that's what the engines thought. It got quite sharp, giving up a kingside pawn there just to keep your kingside safe. But yeah, I mean, look at all this activity. It's really cool. I mean, really nice. And obviously with this offside knight on a4, looking pretty good. And takes, b takes c5, queen takes c5, queen b5, bishop c6, queen g3. This was Stockfish against Dragon. I mean, I still find it quite dangerous. I mean, this pawn's coming along, but here the engines agreed a draw. So, they obviously feel that objectively it's about even. But, very complicated positions. But it's pretty clear that, it's really the moment here that, black's got to really get lots of pieces involved in the queen side counterplay. And actually, of course, this move knight e2 takes c1 is basically slowing down this whole white attack by slowing down f5, removing some white power on the kingside dark squares. Knight takes c2 was played, and now Anna-Maja played f5. It's not incredibly difficult, but it's very nice always to sacrifice a rook like that. And suddenly black's in massive trouble here. Knight takes a1. There's plenty of moves. g5 was my favourite actually, just also with a threat of, well, first bishop f4 and then g6. F6 was what the engines were played in my games. Bishop d4, e5, queen takes c5, and bishop h6 is very nice indeed. So we've opened up the line on this rook. We're still attacking that one, and now we're threatening bishop takes g7 and queen h8. So yeah, queen f6 was played, takes, g5, takes, bishop a8, bishop b2, bishop e4, rook e8, g6. Here queen f2, which is very nice, hitting this one and this one. And after f takes g6, queen b2, we're also picking up this one as well. Yeah, great tactics. Quite difficult to visualize all those tactics, but obviously I think, you know, from the white point of view, you're sort of thinking, you know, I've just got a big advantage here, really. You know, I'm attacking it. Feels like it's going to be enough for the rook. So, you know, let's just go ahead and do it. It might have been worth trying this with black, because what Robin ended up with was just kind of a bad position without any compensation. This move bishop f4 is just really annoying. I mean, there's nothing immediately decisive, but White's just planning to play rook d1, and you know, you're not losing any material at all, and then you're coming in with g5 and e5. You know, it's just a really easy position to play. So Robin played bishop d6, but actually after takes and then e5, actually White's just playing for material advantage. You're just going to grab that rook on a8. So queen takes e5 was played, bishop a8. Maybe not the absolute strongest, but you know, kind of good enough really. fe6, de6, rook a1, and Robin was a piece up. And yeah, well, you know, we saw it in actually in the women's candidates, Tan against Goryachkina. You know, where Tan was a piece up, but still had some struggle to put it away. But yeah, here Black's king side is also quite weak, so there's plenty of opportunities there as well. And so yeah, you know, White won quite easily after that. So a very interesting game there. Yeah, as you can see, it's an opening system that I've got a little bit of knowledge about, but actually that knowledge is more about kind of worries in me than really stuff that makes me feel secure about either side. You know, I find the white king side a little bit open and weak, and that makes me worried. On the other hand, you know, these lines, once you've played h5 as black, you know, where are you going to put your king? You know, it's all very specific, and just according to the position that you decide, okay, I'm going to leave the king in the center, or I'm going to castle queen side or king side. But anyway, well done, Anna-Maja. Match was leveled at 1-1, and the players agreed to share 5th and 6th places. So very well done to both of them. Yeah, and well done to all the players in the Dutch Women's Championship who made an absolutely wonderful tournament of it. So there we are. If you enjoyed that video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, have a look at my new course, the Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which is on Chessable. 20 hours of me speaking, what could be better than that? And also a book, which I'm very proud of as well. But otherwise, you know, thanks very much for watching. Have a great New Year's Eve party, and see you next year. Thanks for watching.